To get started with my kombucha, I first get the sweet tea going on the stove. So here I needed to refill my cane sugar for my little container inside the house. So in our house, cane sugar, we only use it to feed our kombucha because we know that by the time the SCOBY feeds off the cane sugar or the sweet tea, it's going to be converted, the sugars are going to be converted to like an acid. So when we actually consume it, it's not the same as if you're just eating cane sugar straight up. So that's why we do it that way. So once I get that going, I'm going to fill up a container of water, filtered water, in order to make the sweet tea. For my sweet tea, I use 6 organic green tea bags that I will tie into a knot together, and I will put into the boiling water, and I'll let those steep for anywhere from like 15 minutes all the way to a few hours. It kind of just depends on what I'm doing that night or that day as far as like if I'm gonna get to feeding my kombucha right away. But I haven't noticed a difference in the final product of the kombucha. As long as you just steep it for like, at least 15-20 minutes to get it somewhat strong. But if you do it even longer, I don't necessarily notice that it's better or worse. So here I steep it for about 30 minutes and then I go forward and add more water, as you'll see in a few minutes. I keep my main kombucha that has the SCOBY in it in a dark cabinet. So it has cabinet doors, so no light can be let in. And there's a few reasons for this, but the main reason is that no sunlight's going to come in and heat up and accelerate the process of fermentation. So I can have like a full week to go by before I have to feed it again. When I first got kombucha, I did keep it out where there was sunlight, and it was just fermenting way too fast. So I keep a cheesecloth covering over the top so it has airflow. So I just wanted to show you the SCOBY here. It's a few layers thick. You can totally trim off, which you should, some of the layers every few times that you feed it, and you put it into what's called a SCOBY hotel or a kombucha hotel. I think it's a SCOBY hotel, which is just essentially another container full of some of the kombucha liquid that you keep some of the new SCOBY babies, so that if something were to happen to your SCOBY, you'd have a backup SCOBY in your fridge. And just to be clear here, every single time that you go through the week fermentation process of fermenting that sweet tea from your SCOBY will produce a new layer, which is called like a SCOBY baby. So that will eventually get so large that it will ferment your tea way too fast. So you need to be able to peel that off each time. Okay, here I'm showing you the 32-ounce bottles that I use to do my second ferment. So that means after the liquid has fermented in the main jar with the SCOBY, you now have a fermented liquid, which is kombucha. You could drink it straight up like that, or you can do a second ferment with some sort of flavoring. So typically you use fruit juice. In this case, I used Concord grape. This one was actually from concentrate. It is much better to get not from concentrate, but this is what was available at my store at the time. So I'm just showing what I have. But I typically get like this brand or another one similar, not from concentrate. I love the grape juice. We love the just pineapple. We've tried tart cherry, mango, apple juice, orange juice. They all turn out really good. We've tried mixing different things. So it's hard to go wrong. And it's actually fun to experiment and see what flavors that you like. So here I fill up my particular jars. I don't have like a measurement, but I go up. You can see up to like this bottom first notch here. This is just what I have found to be an appropriate amount of juice to get the flavor that I want, and more fruit juice will give you more carbonation. This is another thing I had to troubleshoot. So once I fill each of them with some of the fruit juice at the bottom, I then, using my kombucha liquid that has been fermented for the last week, I then can use the spigot and fill each of those bottles up to kind of like the nape of the neck of each jar. You want to leave a little bit of space, headroom at the top, because if you don't leave enough, sometimes as it ferments and bubbles and expands, you can have issues with the jars exploding. This has personally never happened to me, but I've heard that it's happened to other people. So you want to be conscious of that. Give it a little bit of room. So I fill each one up. My friend did recommend getting a glass jar like I have for your main SCOBY that has a spigot on it. And I'm so glad that I did. You don't have to do it this way, but for me, it's totally like a game changer just to be able to easily fill your bottles and then you just put the new sweet tea in at the top, which you'll see in a minute. It just makes the process really easy and streamlined, and it's not cumbersome, especially considering that the glass is heavy and awkward. This is a 2-gallon jar. I really only need a 1-gallon jar, but that's the size jar that I could find, I believe, at Walmart at the time when I first started, and it works just fine. So here I'm just showing the jars that are filled up. I'm going to cap each one. They have these special seal caps. I recommend getting these type of jars. I got these at a local health food store, but you can get them on Amazon. So I will link similar ones below, and like the cheesecloth or anything else that I use in this video that would be helpful with this process. So at this point, I put all of the kombucha bottles out on my counter, and they are going to stay on my counter for 2 full days, so 48 hours. So this video I recorded in the evening, and then I put them in the refrigerator 2 evenings after that, if that makes sense. So if you do it on a Tuesday night, you're going to put it in the fridge on a Thursday night. So, and just watch, depending on the time of year, if it's warmer or if it's colder. If it's warmer, they're going to ferment faster, colder, slower. So just keep an eye on them. If you notice that the tops of the seals are starting to bulge a little bit, they're probably done. And you can just put them in the fridge to kind of calm down that fermentation so that they don't explode. So here I'm now that we finished the bottles that had, again, the liquid that I poured out of that big jar with the SCOBY, that had already been fermented over the last week with sweet tea. So I did that second ferment with those 32-ounce bottles, put that to the side, and now I need to add new sweet tea into my main large glass kombucha jar so that I can feed that SCOBY again for the next week. And this will be the food, so to speak, for my SCOBY for the next week, which will then repeat the process of converting the sugars as its food into the acid that will be the kombucha that I will use next week. So I used 1 full saucepan full of filtered water to do the tea, and then I'm going to fill it up 2 more times with filtered water and dump that all into a saucepan. So that first one, since it was warm with the green tea that I had brewed like 30 minutes before, I dissolved 1 cup of cane sugar into that warm green tea so that the sugar would dissolve. So I take that dissolved green tea, so it's sweet tea, add 2 more saucepans full of filtered water, mix it all up in a big pot like this, and I tested it right there to make sure that it wasn't too warm, because if you're adding warm, like too warm, especially hot liquid into the SCOBY, because it's alive, you may kill your SCOBY. So you don't want it to be warm. You just want it to be warm during the process of dissolving the sugar. So I'm pouring all this sweet tea now into my large kombucha container. And now I'm going to recover it with my folded up cheesecloth. This is just 100% cotton, big square cheesecloth. And I've like washed it and stuff. So it's just like a soft piece of cotton, and it's folded a couple times. And I put it over the top with 2 rubber bands, keep it tight. You don't want any little bugs or flying gnats to get in, because they will try. But you do want the airflow. So that's why we do that. So now I'm going to put my newly fed kombucha container back into its dark spot in the cabinet. And there it will ferment for the next week. So I can do this whole process next week. So those bottles that are there with the grape juice for their second ferment, again, they will stay on my counter for 2 full days, sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on, just the time of the year, if it's warm, if it's cool. So here, anytime a couple times a day within that 2-day period, I'll just come in and do that, where I kind of tip the bottle over and then back again. And that helps redistribute the little SCOBY in there and the fruit juice all around. And it just helps with flavor and carbonation, I've noticed, if I do that versus if I just let it sit untouched for the full 2 days. Both ways it's going to work, but I prefer doing that little tip up and down. So again, after 2 days, I then put them in my refrigerator. And at that point, I'm just waiting for them to be cold, and I'm going to serve them. So here, this is a finished bottle of the grape kombucha. And you can see all the bubbles coming up. It definitely is carbonated. Has a great sound when you open it. Sometimes it will bubble over. Sometimes it won't be so exciting. Everyone's a little different. This one was pretty good. You can see it was very excited. So I will pour it into a glass. We love to enjoy this pretty much with lunch and dinner. One of our favorite ways to incorporate it in our lives is to have it mixed in with some red wine for our Shabbat dinner. And we love it. It's a huge part of our lives. And a shout out to Jenny, my friend, for showing me how to do this and giving me a SCOBY. And I hope you guys try it. Let me know in the comments if you do. Thanks, guys. Enjoy and shalom.